Thank you for being with us tonight. This meeting has been brought to you in part by
Let Grand Forks International Airport help you start your next vacation off on the right foot. Grand Forks International Airport offers flights to the sunny destinations of Orlando, Las Vegas, and Phoenix on Allegiant, and connections anywhere in the world through Minneapolis-St. Paul on Delta. Forget the hassle of long drives, parking nightmares, and stressful check-ins. The convenience of flying locally means less headaches and more time for you. Grand Forks International Airport, your airport, simply grand.
Know what's in this box? Well, in case your crystal ball is broken, here's a hint. Safe, reliable energy, for starters, but there's also a commitment to this community. See, at Xcel Energy, this is our hometown. So we're not just about making a living here, we're about living here. Oh, I wish I had wings.
In our community, we're always delivering. Xcel Energy, responsible by nature.
Brantley Gilbert returns to Grand Forks. Fired Up Tour 2020 with special guests Chase Rice and Brandon Lay. Alara Center, Saturday, May 2nd. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. The brand new album Fire and Brimstone drops everywhere October 4th. Brantley Gilbert, live in concert. Check more at BrantleyGilbert.com.
The City of Grand Forks, proud home of the University of North Dakota. City Council meeting Monday, November 18th, 2019 is hereby called to order. Welcome and roll call.
Weigel.
Here.
Dockler. Here. Weber. Here. Mock. Here. Marshall. Here. Sandy.
Here.
And Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Under 1.2 Mayor's announcements, I want to say another thank you and a great job to our Public Works crews for the leaf collection and all the related efforts they do to keep us clean and safe. Over 800 tons of leaves have been collected this fall so far, so I want to say thank you. Also, the much anticipated annual Holly Dazzle Parade is this Sunday. Come one, come all, it should be a wonderful way to kick off this season. Thank you to the organizers. I also want to invite everyone to the annual holiday tree lighting ceremony with the Listen Center next to this Wednesday by the Demers Overpass. So that'll be about 5 o'clock, 5:30. And they usually serve hot chocolate, so welcome everyone. And this weekend was a good one for UND athletics and therefore for UND and our community. Congrats and good luck as we move forward. And related, I want to wish a greeting to all the UND presidential candidates on campus and in town last week and this week. This is incredibly important for our community, and I appreciate the opportunities to watch and be a part of the process. So with that, we go to item 2, awards, presentations, and proclamations. I have a proclamation.
2.1 is a presentation of the Trailblazer Award to Michael Dulitz.
Okay, so we'll invite Michael. Is he here? We have to put you in front. He brought the award. Very nice. Very nice. Well, congratulations, Michael. He's our opioid response coordinator at the Grand Forks Public Health, and he received the Trailblazer Award at Recovery Reinvented. And his recognition was awarded by First Lady Catherine Helgas Burgum and the Governor in Bismarck on November 12th. We could not be more proud of you or your efforts, and we're grateful that you want to make our community safe and you're improving and literally saving lives. So thank you, Michael. Beautiful. You earned, well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words?
Sure, Mayor Brown and members of the council. I'm Michael Dulitz. I'm the Opioid Response Project Coordinator at Public Health. I'd certainly like to thank the community as a whole for this award. It certainly would not have been possible without the contributions of every community member who came out for the call to action to help put together the roadmap that really was what guided me through all of the work that I've done. I've oftentimes gone back to the call to action list of priorities to help guide my work over time. Also, I'm very grateful for the council for being supportive of the work that I have done, as well as our community leaders and our legislature, governor's office, first lady's office. This certainly is an award for the system that we've put together more than it is for any individual in the community. So,
well, thank you for spearheading it.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a proclamation, Empire Arts Center Day, November 10th, 2019. Whereas the Grand Theater, now known as the Empire Arts Center, opened at 415 Demers Avenue on November 10th, 1919 as Grand Forks' premier movie house, the facility took on the name Empire Theater in 1955 and continued to function continuously as a beloved local movie theater until 1995. The Grand Forks community rallied to preserve and renovate this historic facility in spite of the setback of the flood of 1997. The Empire Arts Center today continues its legacy as an important center of arts and culture in Grand Forks and the entire Upper Red River Valley. We honor the Empire Arts Center for its 100 years of service and thank the Empire's past and current leadership for their ongoing dedication to excellence, artistry, and community service. And I had the pleasure of joining Miss Grand Forks, Miss Holly Dazzle, Miss Empire at the function on the 10th, and I want to thank everyone who was involved with that. So that's the proclamation. Item 3, public hearings and second reading of ordinances. We have none. Item 4, we have action items. Who would like action items pulled for discussion? I'll pull 4.1. Who would like other action items pulled for discussion? Mr. Vian? 410, Mr. Vian. Any other action items to be pulled for discussion? That leaves 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, and 4.9 for a motion and a second motion. Mr. Vian, thank you. Second, Mr. Sandy. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carries, thank you. 4.1.
That's application for Class 3 wine and beer license for Northern Air Family Fun Center.
So I would like to express my support for Mr. Lee's project, and Mr. Lee has been a dedicated small business owner in our community and has provided fun and enjoyable recreational opportunities for those in Grand Forks region through his work at Northern Air. There's been much discussion on this item. I understand the concerns and sentiments coming from some citizens and council members, as those concerns come from a commitment and dedication to the young people in our community. However, I, along with City Administrator Todd Phelan, Police Chief Mark Nelson, Finance Director Maureen Storstad, toured Northern Air with Mr. Lee 2 weeks ago. After taking the tour, looking at the layout and plans, I do not have concerns that the beer and wine restaurant license he is seeking in conjunction with the floor plans and business model would be detrimental to the well-being of the citizens and visitors to Grand Forks, and I fully support the changes he would like to make in his business. I want to thank Mr. Lee as well. He's been more than cooperative in answering questions, addressing City Council members and citizens' concerns over his new business model. In this matter, Mr. Lee has been told that he meets the requirements of City Code, and the risk is on Mr. Lee to make this venture work in a responsible and prudent manner. And I would like to see us make this business-friendly decision and move forward this evening. So with that, I'd like to open the public comments, or council first, Mr. Sandy.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that Northern Air Family Fun Center, as stated in their name, they're trying to make their facilities and business family-friendly, but also community-friendly, and are trying to adapt to the changing needs of our community. I don't think that they have any misintent from adding an alcohol wine and beer license to their facilities, and I think they simply want to diversify their business. And therefore, I'd like to make the motion to approve their liquor license request as stated in the staff report. Yet I am willing to accept potential friendly amendments to that requirement should council have further discussion and requests.
So we have a motion before us. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Weigel seconds. Now further discussion from council. Ms. Marshall?
Yes, I was the cause of this coming back to the Committee of the Whole for further discussion, and I appreciate the fact that we have done that. Having not been able to attend the meeting last week, I was able to watch the video of the conversation, as well as to see what was published in the Herald. And we've had lots and lots of conversation about this, and I appreciate all of that. I just wanted to ask Mr. Swanson a question, just for clarification. I heard a couple people suggest, and I think also be quoted in the newspaper as saying that if an entity meets the basic requirements, that then they are entitled to a license. And I heard some discussion about if it's just an entitlement, then why would the applications even come to the city council? And I would just like some clarification for future reference on this in terms of the role of the council. I have understood, and from my reading of the city ordinances, that we have a responsibility not only to look at does the application qualify, but there's a policy question that's being asked of us as well. And I think that's why it comes to the council rather than coming directly to city staff without that opportunity for us to make some discretionary decisions based on factors that there might be had in any given conversation. So I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Swanson that, in fact, is an applicant entitled if they meet the minimum qualifications, or does the council have a responsibility to make a policy decision at the same time?
Mr. Swanson.
Mayor Brown, members of council. A liquor license is different than any other license the city issues. A liquor license is not a license that is mandatory to issue. It is a discretionary decision by the council. I don't know if I'd characterize it as a policy decision or not, but it is a discretionary decision to be made. Assuming that the application is complete, at that point it is up to the council, and it is a non-delegable decision, both under state code and under local code. So it does have to come to council. And the council has not only the ability or the obligation to determine whether or not you will issue a license, but if you do issue a license, are there conditions that you would impose upon that? We have a particular ordinance right on point that basically says nothing in this section shall obligate the city of Grand Forks or imply any obligation to issue or reissue any license under this article. So that tells me that it is not an automatic approval, that it is something the council has to decide on. In this particular case, again, assuming the application is complete, the council would need to determine do they meet the definition of a restaurant. We have another ordinance that requires an applicant or a recipient of a liquor license that it be their primary business unless they are a hotel or a motel or a restaurant. I heard comments from this council that there was no definition of a restaurant. I will agree with you, it is not defined in the definition section, but the term restaurant for purposes of Class 3 has standards that have to be met. Number one, are meals prepared and served on site? That is a question only the council can answer. That is not something the staff can answer. Number two, will the sales of food be equal to or greater than the sales of alcoholic beverages? That is a council determination. It may be before fact, it may be after the fact in the course of an audit or request for information. From there, the council's other decisions appear in a different code section, and that is, if you are inclined to grant a license, will you impose other restrictions or limitations that the council finds to be reasonable? So that's another opportunity for the council to make a decision, or at least it's a decision point that the council would have to make. So I don't know if those answer your questions, but there are a number of steps to be taken. And the one thing I did want to clarify they didn't have the opportunity to at the COW was the question that can staff review it and go off a checklist, and the answer to that is no, it is policy decision. That differs from almost any other license you issue, and that is a historical difference with the sale of alcohol that goes back literally to Prohibition. And state law requires that the initial application and approval be given by the governing body. Now, we have streamlined our code since about the mid-1990s to allow the renewal of licenses to be handled administratively, and we have administratively handled the special licenses that are issued to an already existing license holder. Those two steps are pretty consistent across the state of North Dakota. I don't know if I've responded to your questions appropriately or not, but
Yes, very good. That's exactly what I was asking about. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Anyone else wish to discuss? Okay, so we have a motion. Oh, public would like to address the council. I have and if you don't have a speaker card, just stand up at the end and come up. But Julie Rigg wishes to address the council. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of council. I'm here to express my support of the Class 3 liquor license for Northern Air Family Fun Center on behalf of the Greater Grand Forks Visitors Bureau. Here we have a family-run business that's been expanding in our community. It's everything that we want in the Grand Forks area. As I've expressed to you in emails, I sit on various committees and boards where we're constantly talking about all the things that we need in Grand Forks, all the new things that should be brought here to get residents here, get visitors here. And here we have a local business wanting to expand and grow in our community. It's way beyond the liquor license. They're adding more amenities, not only for children, but for adults. It provides us an attraction and something for people to do in our community. And I would just like to express that support on behalf of the Visitors Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Mark Guy wishes to address the council. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for my opportunity to share my voice. When I first heard about this Family Fun Center and went out to the website, I was so excited to see what would be going on and what is going on there. And I think about the joy and even the noise that goes on in an alcohol-free zone for families. Life is complicated, but when I saw those pictures of this Family Fun Center and then became aware of an interest in pursuing another space to throw axes and then to have alcohol served, it just made me wonder a little bit about, is there a way to at least separate those better? Because when you think about the sounds you hear and would hear at this Northern Air Family Fun Center, think of the sounds. Have you heard the sounds you have in a bar? I would say they're different. I'm not passing judgment. I'm not saying anything more except that things can happen. And I think this could possibly increase the risk. The intent is to broaden the appeal. In my sense, in my life, I attended Recovery Reinvented myself last week in Bismarck. But in myself and my life, I want to hear that spark, that joy, that alcohol-free zone. And so that's what I'm here to advocate for. Creating what we have and maintaining that space for the betterment of everyone. Life is full of joy. Let's keep that joy that we have. However this other venture goes, I'll be honest, I've been here over 25 years, and Grand Forks needs to keep and maintain this fun center. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Shab wishes to address the council. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for allowing me to say a few words. Your decisions on city council matter. I would hope that the council takes into consideration alcohol use concerns raised by the 29 Community Health Assessment for Grand Forks and Polk counties, the Substance Abuse and Prevention Coalition, the Community Advisory Committee, which helps establish community development block grant priorities, and Mental Health Matters, a community collaborative that includes the City of Grand Forks. I think we should be listening to the findings and recommendations of these city government-endorsed entities. On the city's website, under alcoholic beverage licenses, it states that City Council is able to impose reasonable restrictions upon a license. That's a direct quote. I believe the two restrictions that you discussed on the Committee on the Whole, which I listened to in its entirety, would be reasonable, and those that you discussed are limiting the hours and restricting where beverages are served. I believe you as a council are well within your right to say that beer and wine will be available after a certain time and only on the second level, but I would advise you consulting with Harold Swanson. I spoke with Harold Swanson today and discovered for myself that the state law requires that City Council approve every initial liquor license. I received quite a few phone calls regarding this matter, expressing their dismay at serving alcohol at a kid-friendly place after the Grand Forks Herald article. I've been getting texts, emails, and phone calls throughout the day today. I must say I didn't get a lot done except this issue. One call on my landline was from someone who didn't tell me her name. I wasn't home, so she left a message. She expressed concern about all the venues in Grand Forks with alcohol, and specifically cited the lack of places to go if someone is on probation for DUI or in recovery, including sporting and arts events that include alcohol and other family-friendly places. Thank you so much. I want you to consider some of those other entities here.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Mr. Wilford?
Mayor Brown, members of the council, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd urge your support of Northern Air's request. In this time of retail transition, businesses like Northern Air are exactly the type of experience-based business we should be supporting. Businesses like this attract visitors, encourage longer stays to our community, all things that benefit the local economy and the tax base. Finally, our community needs to keep adding new things to attract and retain young adults in our community. Businesses like Northern Air offer these types of experience amenities that are important if Grand Forks is to continue to grow and be attractive to young adults. Again, we urge your support. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. So, anyone else wish to address the council? If not, any further discussion from council? If not, we have a motion to take forward. Mr. Vian?
Yeah, I wasn't at the last Committee of the Whole meeting where this was discussed. Luckily, I was able to review the video, the recordings of this, and got, I thought, some very good information, and I appreciated the presentation that was made and the questions and the information that was asked by the council. I think Northern Air is expanding their operation. I think Northern Air is a gem for our community, and I'm very proud in the opportunity that it has for the youth and as it's going to be for the adults. Adding a restaurant, primarily a pizza restaurant on first floor, I think is a great addition. Adding the activity, axe throwing, I never thought about that as some type of event I would probably participate in, but that's okay. It sounds like it's a growing thing on the second floor. I think that's a very good issue too. I think really the only thing that's at issue is how we would add a Class 3 license for serving of beer and wine. Normally I would probably say I'd be opposed to that, but I see there's pros and cons to it. There's just no question about it. There a lot of good information was talked about today about the negativity, the things with culture, and I can't ignore that. But also I think it's very important for Northern Air to be profitable and to grow. And sometimes those are probably in conflict with each other a little bit. And so how do we do this in such a manner that we can have a win-win is probably what I was looking about. And so I think that the motion that is there could be improved by adding some additional amendments to it that would still support the Class 3, but have some additional criteria established with it. And I do have some questions along the way, so I know, Mr. Lee, you are here and would be available to possibly answer that. One of the items that has been talked about is a separation of the restaurant because of the addition of the Class 3 license from the rest of the facility in some manner or form. And I looked around and I saw what was happening with the El Bistro at the Canad Inn, where there also is beer and wine, and they have a half wall up that at least separates it. You can still see through it, you can still see the people, but it's a form of separation that I think would make sense in this location. And as I've thought about it a little bit, it may, and I'm going to say this with a big may, be necessary by code so that you create a corridor for those people that are exiting out to, and that would have to be something that would have to be further assessed. But I would like to, number one, see if we would just add that as a stipulation to approval to get the license. The second part was I had a concern a little bit about I think it's 13 to 20-year-olds, is that's what would be allowed up on, because anybody over 21 can be there. If you're 20 or between 13 and 20, you would have to be accompanied by a parent, right? Not an adult, but by a parent. My question is how even 13 and 14-year-olds may not have identification or something like that. Can you explain that one to me a little bit more? I'm trying to understand that better.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Brown and City Council. Yes, so most places right now that have axe throwing are allowing anywhere up from 8 years old up to 14, 15-year-olds, but they have to be with a parent, and they have to be actually throwing. The 21 and over, absolutely. 18 and up don't have to have, according to what I found on a lot of these websites. I went through, since our last meeting, I went through the World Axe Throwing League, every single affiliate, every single web page of those affiliates. There was 128 of them. 103 either allow them to bring their own beer and wine in, or they sell beer and wine at that location, and every single one of them allow minors in their facility. There are 25 right now that alcohol is not permitted in there. But about half of those, on their website, they clearly say that they are in the process of trying to get it. So to answer your question, that's the norm out there in the country then for axe throwing.
How much in the time frame of a day will it be open for those under 20, 21 to? It's not going to be all day long. You're going to have just a set time where they will be able to throw axe?
Are you asking if there's going to be a restriction, say after 9 o'clock, then only 18 and up can be there? Is that what you're referring to?
Is there an established time where only adults are in there?
There's not right now.
Okay, so youth can come up at any time and throw axe?
That's correct.
Oh.
It has to be with the parent though, and the parent has to be with you actually throwing as well. Okay, and that's how most of these are doing it. Some of them are allowing birthday parties to be in there where there's a ratio of 1 to 4, 1 to 6 kids. I don't think I'm interested in that. I would rather like to see it be 1 to 1, one parent for that particular child.
Okay, that's my confusion. I was thinking you were going to have a set time when you would have youth in there, and then the rest of it would be, so it doesn't matter through closing time, youth can be in there at any time, then if they're with a parent.
Correct.
Then one of the last items that I wanted to ask a little bit about, and something that I didn't think we, or at least I was going to propose stipulating or required, will there be, or could there be a time when it would be alcohol-free?
There could be. Just like there could be in any of the restaurants that currently have it, or just like any of the other Class 3 beer and wine locations that have it. There could be. But I guess, just like we explained last time, that the kids more than likely are going to be coming earlier in the day. And as the time extends into later in the evening, that's when more and more older adults and stuff are going to be in there. If it would please the city council that we say after 9 o'clock, nobody under 18 would be there, I'm okay with that. But some of the other restrictions, I don't know. I think everybody is trying to make this into something way, way bigger than it is. And you know, we're just trying to do something that every other business in town that sells alcohol with food is able to do.
And I'm trying not to get into that level of micromanagement, okay?
Yep.
Tell you what hours or whatever. There is, and you've heard some of that and seen this, those who would like to see a place alcohol-free that they could take their children to. And I just wondered if we could artificially create that and have a win-win where there would be not us telling you when, that you would be able to look and say, hey, I think we can accommodate that between 10 and 11 in the morning, or 10, you know, something like that, without having to get to the point where we're giving that level of detail.
I appreciate the input, and I guess we'll have to see where everybody's vote is, because we meet the requirements. We meet them all. We're going to follow every single local, state, and federal rule. We don't have, there's nothing in my background that would suggest that I'm going to do this without 100% conviction. Some of you may know what my background is, some of you may not. I know the last meeting, you know, we talked about foster kids and we talked about all kinds of stuff. I taught for 10 years at a residential treatment facility, okay? So I have firsthand knowledge of abused kids, sexually, emotionally, addicted kids. I taught them for 10 years. We didn't open this place so that we could help create them. We opened this place so that we could allow kids to have an outlet for something else that's fun and active and not necessarily where they can get out of their family environment and go interact with other kids in a safe environment. We're trying to ask for that same thing for the next older adults so that we can do that in the axe throwing area.
Those were my questions.
Any further comments from council? Mr. Weigel?
Just two quick things, Mayor Brown. One, I feel like we're telling Mr. Lee how to run his business, and I don't like that. I haven't opened my checkbook to invest in his business, so that's a concern of mine. Secondly, he's being more restrictive than many similar businesses, such as Splashers. I can take a beer from Tavern United, go into Splashers, or I can go down to Playmakers. I can walk through that whole hotel with an alcoholic beverage. Mr. Lee is wanting to do it in the restaurant area or the axe throwing area. Same with Happy Joe's. I can order a beer there, walk to the arcade in Happy Joe's, and do the same thing. So to me, he's taken more steps to restrict what we've, restrict more than what's already being asked of him in code. So I'm happy to support this. I was actually there yesterday. I enjoyed my time, and he's really taking a lot of the risk. If people don't want to go there, that could hurt him financially, that could hurt his business, and I think that's him taking the risk, and if he meets the code, I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Any further council comments? If not, we have a, Mr. Vian.
I'm going to just make the one amendment then, that we do have the separation of the space on the main floor by the half wall. And so that's my motion.
So we have Mr. Vian's motion to have a half wall on the main floor where the pizza and beer is served. Does it have a second? If not, motion dies. Okay.
Yes.
So we have a motion to amend to add a wall on the main floor where the beer and pizza are served. Motion is second. Further discussion? Mr. Sandy.
Mr. Lee, is it going to be a big deal to put up a half wall to separate the restaurant area on the main floor from the rest of the area? To me, that seems like a real easy thing to do.
If that will appease, and I apologize for cutting you off, if that will appease the city council, we can do that.
Very good. I do have another question.
Yes,
If
sir.
I, for example, want to rent out the whole axe throwing area and told you I don't want beer sold or wine sold during the time that I'm renting it out, would you be willing to accommodate that?
Absolutely.
If the school district comes to you and says, hey, we want to have a fun day out at your facility, can you make sure to lock up all the beer and wine so that it's nowhere to be seen? Is that an
Absolutely.
issue? Or if a church comes to you and says, we want to have a fun church day, so there are also, if I understand it correctly, you're willing to do that and you want to work with anything that will generate revenue for you, really is what you're trying to do, right?
Well, that's the only way we're going to stay in town. Conversely, though, Mr. Sandy, if I have a business that wants to rent out the whole facility and they want to have beer and wine there, can I have beer and wine in the whole facility then?
No, absolutely not.
See, there you go.
Absolutely
That's
not.
what we're talking about. Okay? See, I have to do it. I have to do it in a different way.
I actually do believe that you can
Okay.
get a permit. You can apply for a permit to do that, but that would be up to Mr. Swanson if you can extend your beer and wine license to other areas. But that's a discussion for another day.
Good. Say, that's another day.
Then
That's
I'm
right.
I'm happy to accept that friendly amendment.
So do we need to vote on the friendly amendment if it's accepted?
It has to be accepted by the original motion and the second, which would be Mr. Weigel.
Mr. Weigel, do you accept the half wall on the main floor?
My question is, are we going to go to these other businesses and make them build a half wall and not allow alcohol to go out? Because we've already set precedent that we allow this, and now we're restricting Mr. Lee. That's my question. So where are those letters going to come from?
So that's a no.
No.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to amend with a second. All in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
So Ms. Dockler and Mr. Weigel dissent, motion carries. So we have the motion to amend as passed, and now we have the motion as amended before us, including the half wall on the main floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Aye. Motion carries, Ms. Dockler dissents. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now we go to 410.
Preliminary approval of an ordinance amending sections 18-0204 rules and definitions, 18-0219 I-2 heavy industrial district side yard requirements, 180302 off-street parking and loading, 180309 landscaping sections of the Crawford City Code for the purpose of establishing allowances for gravel and requirements for curb and gutter landscaping in the I-2 districts.
Mr. Vian.
Just like thank you. A summary of this issue. Obviously, this has been, the current code has been on the books for 25 years?
Decades would be, in terms of the current code relative to whether or not gravel or paving, I would say probably decades that ordinance has been in place.
I was trying to think that was back in Bushfield's day when they started having the requirement for curb and gutter and paving. Yeah, so I'm thinking it's been around for a long time, and
Yes.
you're requesting a modification in the code, so I'd just like to have a clarification of what and why.
Okay. For quite some time, staff has dealt with requests for variances for primarily heavy industrial businesses to vary the paving requirement for parking lots, referred to them as lay-down areas, anything that's related to this industrial property. So over the years, whether it's the Board of Adjustment, who takes and hears variances from conventional districts, or the Planning and Zoning Commission, who hears, it's called an appeal, but it's still a variance for those certain things. And it's been going on, I think, long enough to where there has been a definite pattern formed over the years. So staff, along with some P&Z members, talked about, well, should we maybe address at least a part of this? Because if that's always going to be the case, variances are being granted, let's look to see what a reasonable middle ground is. So this whole ordinance, proposed ordinance, basically is saying that any heavy industrial, only I-2, we have two different industrial districts, I-1 being light, I-2 being heavy. Any I-2 heavy industrial business that's not located within one of our corridor overlay districts is subject to some of these basically loosening up of the provisions. It doesn't account for the actual like required parking for a business, but we're looking at areas where you have a large heavy truck circulation maybe on the backside, a storage yard, anything that would have otherwise required a full paving for the entire, in this case, storage area. So this is a way of addressing some of those uses to lighten the restrictions, however, not give everything up in terms of our corridor overlay districts and those areas where that we already have some of these stricter aesthetics. So I think it's a function of time, having dealt with variances, and then coming to at least a middle ground. So this ordinance that you have in front of you was an effort by staff as well as a subcommittee that was made up of Planning and Zoning Commissioners and 2 members of the Board of Adjustments, both bodies that have dealt with these variances. I can get into further detail, but that's sort of the background of why it's here.
One of my questions, I didn't know variances were allowed when the code had stipulated those impervious areas. I guess that was kind of new to me. I didn't know they had that authority to give a variance to that.
Yes, pretty much everything in Chapter 18 in terms of dimensional standards, impervious, all those things, whether it's a building setback, also to include the types of materials that are required, those have always been able to, or eligible for a request. Really, the only thing that's not eligible for the most part is to vary the actual land use itself.
Do you see any, I don't know, negativity toward this change? I mean, in the past, we had looked at, landscaping issues, tall weeds, mud being tracked out onto the roads because there were the parking areas weren't paved. There was some real aesthetic issues that this was intended to solve. Do you see any reverting back to that kind of concerns?
Sure, there's always the chance of, obviously, properties not being kept up over the years, but I think just the goal was to hit that certain type of business and location to allow some of these looser regulations. For example, one provision in the ordinance, if you have an area where it's eligible for this way of using gravel, crushed concrete, if your area that you're using the crushed concrete, if that area is separated by basically a drive aisle that goes to a paved public street, part of that safeguard is the first 50 feet of that driveway coming in off of the public street onto the property, that first 50 feet has to be paved, or other methods, or other methods of basically allowing that debris and those things to be, dislodged, so to speak, from a vehicle. There's probably maybe 10 different methods on how to do that. So I think those are the things that we need to maybe still focus on to help assure that some of these properties aren't turning into what you described.
How many variances do you see happening a year?
Offhand, we don't have the number, but it's, of course, it's cyclical. I mean, you can go a few years of seeing nothing and go a few years of seeing almost every request, it seems, that comes by. Those that have been on the corridor overlay districts, which is all of our primary principal and minor arterials, typically those haven't been successful. but it's those that are more interior to the heavy industrial areas that have, but we can certainly put those numbers together because this is only preliminary.
Sure.
But if you want that kind of information, we'd be happy to look.
Because this primarily would be new construction, right? I mean, or do you see most of what's there is already there? Take an Oscarville, for example. Obviously, if we pave that in the future, that's going to change maybe things out there, but almost everything there is gravel, is it not?
Primarily.
A lot of it is, anyway.
Right. This, I think to get to the heart of that question, this ordinance is intended to address new development. Over time, we'll have probably requests from an existing development, maybe for a building addition, and we'll have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
I should know the new building on South 42nd Street, the
Ironhide.
Yeah, that would be impacted by this then, or did they already have a variance?
Well, Ironhide is a situation where it's in a PUD, but it was zoned specifically to allow things like heavy equipment sales. So it's not a straight out like industrial district. So they went through the whole variance process through the PUD approval process to ultimately were granted the ability to not have to pave the full complement of the entire parking lot. So if this ordinance were passed and we never talked or heard of Ironhide and then they came to us, the first rule we would look at is it's in the corridor overlay district, therefore it's not eligible or subject to these more lax provisions. And I think at the end of the day, again, they probably still could be eligible to request it, but that's a scenario where we would want to stick with our main corridor overlay rules that have been in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on 410? Any comments? Mr. Sandy, motion approved. Ms. Marshall, seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I need 2 introductions to ordinance tonight, 4.2 and 4.10. Mr. Sandy, thank you. Item 5, informational items, 5.1.
Statement of changes of cash balance as of September 30th.
And then 5.2.
Investment portfolio summary as of October 31st.
Item 6, public comments. Anyone wish to address the council? Thank you. Item 7, approval of the minutes and bills, 7.1.
The vendor list as presented.
Need a motion and a second to pay the bills. Ms. Stockler motions, Ms. Mock seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carries. The bills are paid. 7.2.
And the minutes from August 5th and August 19th.
Who has motion for that? Mr. Weber motions, Ms. Stockler seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Thank you. Item 8, city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Getting ready for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Item 9, mayor and council member comments. Councilman Weigel.
Oh, thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Dockler.
Yes, just one thing. I'd like to thank all of the teachers and staff at our public schools, at Grand Forks Public Schools. It's fortuitous that we have this meeting tonight to kick off American Education Week. I really appreciate everything you do for my kids and all of the kids in the community. We have great, safe places for them to go.
Well, thank you. I think we all echo that. Mr. Weber. Councilwoman Mock.
I just want to congratulate Michael Dulitz again on his award. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall. Councilman Vian.
Yeah, I apologize because last Tuesday I wasn't here. Mr. Phelan and I were in Fargo at the Legislative Committee meeting on the Legacy Fund earnings and what's going to be potentially the future changes. We're advocating very much for the long-term low-interest loans, and along with a number of other communities that were there. I think the first night there was 24, 25 presenters. The next day there was a few additional presenters. And so I think the idea is we need to try to stay on top of that issue. It's going to have significant financial benefits for us if, in fact, some of the things that Senator Wardner is proposing for that fund. Senator Holmberg is on that committee. And chaired by Representative Pollard. There was a good bit of an education, especially on the second day, and there'll be 2 more meetings of that, I think, before the next legislative session, so we'll try to stay on top of that. Again, that have significant impacts for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Sandy.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing.
Thank you. Under Mayor's comments, I want to congratulate the Empire Arts Center for their 100 years and thank Hal and Kathy Gershman for their leadership in restoration and maintaining that facility. Great job to our Public Works people for collecting 800 tons of leaves, and they'll still do a respond. If you have leaves in your yard, call, let us know, and we'll take care of that. The annual Holly Dazzle Parade is this Sunday. Come one, come all. Thank you to the organizers. The lighting of the holiday tree is next Wednesday, the 27th of November at 5:30 with the Listen Center in the evening, so please attend if you can. Congratulations to UND on their athletics. Thank you for all the UND presidential candidates for coming to visit us this last week and this week. And again, congratulations to Michael Dulitz on your recognition for what you've done. With that, we need a motion and a second to adjourn. Mr. Sandy quickly motions, Ms. Marshall seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned to now go to the joint school board council meeting. Thank you.
Nice job, Brian.